So to continue, the Egyptian flood is 150 days, the result of snow melting in the Ethiopian mountains, which is the exact same number of days in the Bible, shown here. Over here we have more interesting data that the American letter Q in the English alphabet is the Greek numerical 9 called theta, which was a circle with a cross in it, prior to which was a circle with an X in it, and a circle with an X in it, and then a circle with a dot in it, all representative of the sun, which is called Ra. It was 3100 BC, or Ra Ataman 2500 BC. Likewise, the letter L in the English alphabet derives from the symbol for the water wave, which is called the god Nun, shown here in the Egyptian mythology. D in the English alphabet derives from the delta, or the pyramid, shown here. A derives from the bird that came out of the pyramid, called by Herodotus the phoenix. And the 9 gods that were made by this pyramid, sun, creation process were: 1, Atom, otherwise known as Adam, in Judeo-Christian Islamic mythology, who created Shu and Tefnut, or air and moisture, followed by Jebin, Nut, otherwise known as the earth and sky, or famously known as, well, we have the name geocentrism, who created Isis, Osiris, Nephthys, and Set. These 9 gods are called by the Greeks Theta, which became Q, and that is why you have the symbol Q in chemistry and physics and thermodynamics. Here we have Tom splitting Shu and Tefnut in half, which is where the model of soulmates comes from, which was passed along to us from Plato. Here we have the 4 elements. Basically, first there was water, the god Anon, out of which the pyramid arose, called the god Atum, from which the god fire arose, called Ra, from which Shu, the element of air and moisture, was created. This is the Greek version of the Egyptian creation myth. Which basically shown here is carved on the pyramids. It was basically a bunch of mess. Similarly here, we see the Nu carrying his solar bark, which became Noah's ark, as we were taught in America, which is basically backwards idiocy. Here we have page 32. Summary of the creation myths, how they got transformed over the course of 3,000 years, 2 to 3,000 years. Probably an important point right here is how in November, December, the Orion constellation looks like it's dead right here, like a dead pharaoh. And over the course of the night, it rises from the dead. becomes vertical, and then it looks like it's a reborn, like a warrior. And this is where the death and resurrection of Jesus came from. Most people are ignorant of this. Here's the picture right here, carved on the pyramids at in about the Dendera Temple, 30 AD. Osiris dead, Osiris rising, Osiris resurrected. That's where Christianity comes from. Here we have Horus putting the breath of life into Osiris, which got translated. This is actual carvings on the Dendera Temple in 30 AD, which by about 550 AD at the in Ravenna in Italy became rescripted in this story of Jesus raising Lazarus or Osiris from the dead. And basically, they've been sold to Mickey for the last 2,000 years. So here we have Ra Osiris when they became equal in power. It was about 1300 BC, 1250 BC. They had to join them in power and say that Ra, shown here is in form of his the Ankh, was born out of the giant pillar or backbone of Osiris, out of which the sun rose. They syncretized the two gods here in 1250 BC. This got passed along to us is that Osiris was born out of the tip of the pyramid, out of which Ra was born. And this is where we get the, this is how we make our Christmas trees now. Ra is the angel at the top, and Osiris is the backbone of the Christmas tree. Over here we have the rescripts. Very strange. Okay. So here we have the 6 main rescripts. Nile became Nun, or it became a Tum. These two became Vishnu, Manu, Atman, Adamo, Hinduism, became Noah and Adam in Judaism. They became Noah and Adam in Christianity, and Noah and Adam in Islamic religions. The Milky Way became the god goddess Hathor in the Egyptian mythology. This one is, as of yet, I haven't been able to figure it out. It became Eve in Judaism. It became Eve again in Christianity, and then Hawa in Islamic, the rescript. Sirius is the brightest star visible to the Earth. And the helical rising of Sirius marks the start of the Nile River flood and also the rebirth of the sun god Ra. They've always been coupled together in terms of the way the Egyptians viewed things. It's kind of like wife and husband. So these myths come from 2500 BC. So 2,000 years later, or about 1,500 years later, give or take, these were culturally transmitted to India, where they became the story of Brahma and Saraswati, shown here. So Brahma, this is the Egyptian version here. I see carved on the pyramids at Dendera. Ra is the he's shown here. Okay, so Ra is shown here is a bulb of light, being right here like a bulb. It's got the snake inside of him, a pep. It's kind of like the snake he does battle with it every night. And he's born out of the tip of Nu, kind of like the stem of the lotus. The lotus flower is born out of the water, arises in Egypt and kind of blooms every night, every morning. And this got translated into Hindu mythology as the story of Vishnu being born out of Ra, or B, Ra, HMA, in other words, Ra, or Brahma as they call them, being born out of the stem of a lotus that dips into the god Vishnu. It's basically a retelling of the same story with different words. So in Christianity, this became what was called Manu, or Adam, or Brahma, and Hinduism became Noah, Adam, Eve, Abraham, Sarah, and Moses. Now, Moses is very complicated. It takes a while to track down. Moses was originally Osiris in Egyptian mythology. And if you check the overlap between Osiris and Moses, you find there are over 23 points of overlap between their things told about them. For example, smiting water out of a rock, I can't remember all of them, but you can look them up. Now, this was the Judaic version of the Egyptian rescript. The Christian version of the Egyptian rescript was similar. They kept everything. They kept Abraham. They kept Eve, Adam, Noah. But they divided Moses into Osiris and his son Horus, such that Jesus became the son of Osiris, or Horus, kept all those other things, Noah being Egyptian god Noah, Adam being Atam, Eve being Hathor, Abraham being Ra, Sarah being Isis, Mary being... these are both Isis goddesses. Jesus was Horus, and this was Osiris. They split Osiris and Horus right here, and they kept the afterlife. So these people didn't have, the Judaic religion didn't have the afterlife. The appeal of the Christian religion was that they had the afterlife. So that's why it's so popular right now. And the Muslims just copied the whole thing, which is just ridiculous, basically. Over here, we have the Egyptian pantheon, which is basically what we just discussed, with the Judeo-Christian names inserted. For example, the Kim, which is a black soil, between Ham, which was one of the sons of Noah. Joshua became the god Shu, or god Shu. Adam became Atum. Abraham became descriptive Ra, or father Ra of Egypt. Ham means Egypt, or Kim, similar to chemistry, same etymology. Japheth means God, Ptah. Noah means none. Kim, or Shem, is representative of the Agdod, or these 9 gods. Eve is Hathor. Anubis became John the Baptist. This is interesting. Yanu, they call him in many countries in Europe right now, means John. Mary became, or Isis became Mary, and Set, or Satan, became the devil, or Diablo, as he was called in Greek. Osiris became God the Father, and Jesus became Osiris. And then we have the Judeo-Christian Islamic pantheon. Most people are ignorant of this. I was ignorant too, prior to maybe a decade ago. So here we have Atam, or Adam, as he was re-scripted, gives birth to Noah, or Na, as it's called in Egyptian. Originally, this was reverse. Noah comes first, and he gives birth to Adam. Be it what it is, out of the two of these, Ra is born, the son, who is called Abraham. From Abraham, we have Moses, or Osiris, Dionysus. And then we have King David, who becomes skipping through 42 generations becomes Jesus. Now the 42 has to do with the 42 gnome gods who presided over the judgment of the weighing of the souls in Egyptian mythology. So the Jews, the Christians, had to rescript a story such that they invented at least 42 patriarchs, or between Ra or Abraham and Jesus. So they incorporated all the Egyptian gods, these 42 different gods. Later, in about 600 AD, Muhammad, or the Islamic culture, similar to the Judaic rescript, reinvented religion based on the established Judeo-Christian religion, and said that this Muhammad was born out of Jacob, or Ishmael. It's all mythology. Now we're up to 4 elements, atoms, and void. Amazing. 25 years working on this problem. This void thing is very takes up a lot of time to dismiss. It kind of has to do with you define yourself as a certain being, human being. So it's kind of like your mind, your state of existence. Your being cannot go into, if your being goes into non-being, that means you never existed, or something, or your existence was pointless. So Parmenides said that being cannot go into non-being for a number of basically stupid reasons, but it absorbed the minds of everybody for 3,000 years, 2,000 years. His arguments are lost in fragments. But that's all I'm going to say on that. So here we have this is kind of important, I guess. We have the different Greek philosophers over here. About 70% of them, as I've stated explicitly in the book, they traveled to Egypt and studied the Egyptian philosophy. And they came back with the idea that first there was the water, none, and there was the earth, atom, or atom, Noah, and then there was the fire, came out of the earth, or Abraham, and then there was air, which was Shu, or Joshua. So it's basically Noah, Abraham, Noah, Adam, Abraham, and Joshua. That's basically how the Old Testament was written. But skipping forward a few things, we see the different about every 100 years these things become more complicated. Pythagoras had this tetracytes, or 4, 7, 8, 9, 10 pointed pyramid. Empedocles had 4 roots, and Empedocles was very intelligent. Heraclitus was very intelligent. And then Plato had this basically retarded geometrical system. And then we have Lucretius. He summarized everything in terms of atoms. That's where he started getting some intelligence. But Thales was very intelligent. He said everything was water that came out. Thales was very intelligent. So here we have, that's how we basically understand things right now. And this is page so basically we understood atoms in 300 to 200 BC. We're up to page 42. Now Parmenides. Parmenides is basically someone you could. It takes a lot of work to wrap your mind around what he's saying. For basically a number of fragments extant on him are minimal, and what he says is complicated about being. Everybody wants to know about being and becoming, and ontology. And Parmenides just attacked this problem like a lion on a rabbit or something. And now we're over here. And he was basically attacking Heraclitus. Heraclitus was not necessarily the rabbit, but they did battle with each other. And what is said about them, what is extant about them is not enough to formulate a full picture. But Heraclitus was the flux and fire philosopher, and Parmenides was the novoid philosopher of the Eleatic school. And these guys had entire schools of students that followed each other. And then when Aristotle came, he summarized this, or gave a synopsis of the whole thing. And that was basically 350 BC. So 200 years later, after all these guys had already been established, Aristotle tried to give his opinion on the whole thing. That's basically what we are taught right now. But Heraclitus is the winner. We can't exactly give a full picture of how exactly he won.